A semi flipped on southbound Stony Trail near Glenmore Trail just after 8 o'clock tonight. Emergency crews took one adult to Foothills Hospital in serious but non-life-threatening condition. Here's what else we're working on tonight. Opposing forces for and against Alberta separation.
So I got a little more work to do.
The Premier faces division in her party and province. Calgary's new mayor and council look at ways to whittle down property taxes. And flaming flyby.
What is that?
The likely cause of this spectacle in the sky.
CTV Calgary, local breaking news with Alicia Fieldberg.
Hello and thank you for joining us. Whether Alberta will remain in Canada or seek independence could be voted on in the next provincial election. Pressure is mounting for the Premier to move the separatist agenda forward, while at the same time a petition calling for MLAs to vote on whether to remain in Canada has just been certified by Elections Alberta. Kevin Green reports.
A standing ovation for Premier Smith Monday from energy contractors happy with the recent memorandum of agreement with Ottawa, a far cry from the reception it got from members of her own party at the weekend AGM.
I hope people today feel a lot more confident that Canada works than they did a couple of days ago.
In fact, the biggest cheers at the convention went to Alberta separatists, which the party president says now make up the majority of UCP members.
I would say that probably more than half of our membership actively support the idea of an independent Alberta.
The Premier doesn't buy that. Is your party now a separatist party?
No.
Danielle Smith says there's a place in her mind for Alberta inside Confederation, but admits it's not an easy sell to some in her party.
I've always said my job is to tell people that Canada works and show them that it works, and to get more people to understand that we can have our own sovereign areas of jurisdiction within a united Canada. So I got a little more work to do.
Political scientist Dwayne Bratt says Smith is trying to play both sides, but that can't last.
She keeps using the phrase sovereign Alberta in a united Canada because that seems to appeal to both sides. But at a certain point, she's going to have to pick a side.
That could come sooner than she wanted. Monday, Elections Alberta said the Forever Canadian petition is certified. Its founder wants it to force a vote in the legislature. The Justice Minister says Cabinet will meet to plan next steps, but Thomas Lukaszuk expects Smith will push it to a referendum to appease her independence wing.
Now she has to save her political hide and give them a referendum, but she can only blame it on herself.
Smith is being squeezed on both sides of the separation question. The leader of the Alberta Republican Party says if Smith doesn't stand up in the legislature and say she supports the majority of her party wanting to separate, she should say she's quitting.
I think if you're the leader of a party and you don't identify with the clear majority of what your membership is aligned with, then maybe you're leading the wrong parade.
The Premier's press secretary says that Smith will introduce legislation sometime this week to clarify just what she means by a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada. That could come as early as Tuesday. Kevin Green, CTV News, Calgary.
The Premier is also facing Albertans who are dissatisfied with her team and says it could prompt legislation changes. Recall petitions have been approved against 14 MLAs, all of them members of Smith's UCP caucus. Smith says there will be some changes to election legislation on Thursday. The president of the Alberta Federation of Labour says the Premier is making false accusations about him funding these petitions to justify potentially challenging the Recall Act.
They're not doing this to protect Albertans. They're not doing this to protect democracy. They are doing this to protect themselves.
He says the Premier has only herself to blame for the recall petitions. Many of the people who started them point to the UCP's use of the notwithstanding clause. All 14 are still in the signature gathering stage. BC's Premier has had a change of heart over his objection to an Alberta pipeline going through his province, but it comes with a caveat. The federal tanker ban must remain in place. Danielle Smith still wants a pipeline to the BC North Coast and believes it can happen. Tyson Fedor reports.
You just want pipelines to be boring again, to quote our Prime Minister. That was a bit of a joke.
Speaking to hundreds of Canadian energy sector workers, Premier Danielle Smith says the future is bright for oil and gas.
In 2025, we created over 80,000 jobs. And so when we start thinking about growing this industry again, when we start thinking about removing the barriers for increase in production, getting access to broader markets, that means we're going to be putting more people to work.
This comes on the heels of last week's Memorandum of Understanding between Ottawa and Alberta. A bitumen pipeline project has faced staunch criticism from BC's Premier and coastal First Nations. But speaking with CTV's Question Period, Premier David Eby says he's willing to discuss a new pipeline.
If we can agree that the oil tanker ban is going to stay in place, then let's have those conversations. I think that would make life a lot better and easier in British Columbia in terms of our relationship with coastal First Nations.
We want to get as much buy-in, and we want to have as much benefit for British Columbians as we possibly can, and that includes British Columbia First Nations.
But with concerns around oil spills in the Hecate Strait, would a pipeline be beneficial elsewhere? One former pipeline executive believes so.
The market should decide where that pipeline ends up. Like, is it Kitimat? Is it Prince Rupert? Is it Vancouver? Do we go back to Vancouver and build another pipe, along the existing Trans Mountain route, which is always an alternative?
But the feds say any interprovincial pipeline needs the consent of all those involved.
If the provinces and the Indigenous peoples are in agreement, that then there is a pathway to actually make that happen. But I am not going... What happened? For a pipeline. But
Alberta has until July 1st to submit a pipeline proposal to Ottawa's Major Projects Office. Tyson Fedor, CTV News, Calgary.
Calgary City Council debated until almost 10 o'clock this evening, trying to find savings as it sets spending priorities for the 2026 budget. Councillors are considering dozens of amendments, but couldn't get through them all tonight, so will continue tomorrow. As Jordan Canagan reports, already the tax increase is coming down from what was initially on the table.
After hearing from the public, Calgary councillors are zeroing in on next year's property tax hike.
We could go all the way to 0%, but what it means is not funding the needed safety improvements that Calgarians have told us are important right now.
Council came into the discussion with homeowners facing a 5.8% property tax increase, but they are chipping away at it. They voted unanimously in favor of canceling the planned tax shift from businesses to homes. That brings down the tax increase to 3.6% on the residential side.
We're focusing on prudence, and more importantly, we're not risking the future going concern of the City of Calgary.
Another change sees Council taking $50 million of investment income that would go to reserves and instead putting it towards the operating budget.
So the idea of earmarking the first $50 million in investment income to specific priorities around policing, around transit, around preventing root causes of crime, this is the prudent thing and the needed thing to do right now.
That vote brings down the 2026 property tax increase to 1.6% so far. But some worry it's setting up the next budget for a large tax jump again.
If that were not to materialize into the future, if we allocate too much of our positive variance towards the base budget, it could set us up for a tax increase into the future.
Jordan Cadigan, CTV News, Calgary.
A fire started in a home in Panorama Hills this afternoon. It spread to the house next door before crews could get it under control. They used aerial trucks to douse the flames. No people were hurt. 2 cats were rescued, but a 3rd cat did not survive. There's no word on the cause. Alberta Health Services is warning about measles exposure at the Calgary airport. A person on board a KLM flight on November 22nd was flying while infectious. The flight arrived in Calgary at 1:30 that afternoon. Exposure locations include international arrivals, customs, and baggage claim. The infectious person also went to the Claresholm Hospital on November 24th. Anyone who develops symptoms should call the measles hotline before going to any healthcare facility. The First Street Market food hall has been temporarily shut down by health inspectors. On its Instagram page, the market group says it was shut down after an AHS inspection on Friday revealed a pest infestation. It will remain closed until it can be brought up to standards of safety and cleanliness. The downtown market houses 9 locally owned restaurants, all of which have ceased operation while the hall is closed. Danielle, after the cool weekend, it was nice to have a bit warmer weather and bright day today.
Yeah, it was a beautiful day. Quite a nice way to kick off the month of December with the brightness and the warmth. Now, we're still going to remain above freezing for our daytime high tomorrow, but it likely won't feel like it because it will be combined with a cold wind gusting up to 40 kilometers per hour out of the north. Also, more cloud cover expected throughout the day tomorrow, and on and off snow is certainly the possibility. We'll likely pick up 1 to 3 centimeters in the city of Calgary, and even in the morning a wind chill of -7. So we'll talk about that longer range forecast in just a little bit.
Thanks, Danielle. If you were lucky, you may have got a glimpse of a fireball streaking across the sky last night above Calgary and other parts of Alberta. So what was it? Tyler Barrow takes a look.
This video was captured just east of Drumheller. At the same time, it captivated people's attention at the Calgary Zoo.
I don't know. A fireball.
For those who were lucky enough to look up at just the right time, the memory is unforgettable. Joseph Matamitsia captured this video shortly after 5:30 at the Spruce Meadows Christmas Market.
It was really cool. A lot of people in the crowd in the Christmas market were looking up and they were really interested.
While Tahoe Morale saw it from his home, one of his security cameras also caught it.
Magnificent. It was beautiful, actually.
The Facebook group Alberta Aurora Chasers says the fireball was actually visible from across the province, with reports coming in from Wainwright, Edmonton, Lacombe, Red Deer, Airdrie, Okotoks, Lethbridge, and Pincher Creek. A University of Calgary Aurora camera caught it in Lucky Lake, Saskatchewan, approximately 145 kilometers south of Saskatoon. But what was it? According to a U of C astronomy professor, he believes it's a piece of space equipment that was scheduled to re-enter the atmosphere around December 1st. This would be from a rocket that launched on November 5th in New Zealand.
With the commercialization of space, we see more strange features in the sky related to launches and, of course, to basically materials that come down.
It was kind of a very cool way to cap, the beginning of the Christmas season.
Very few surprises in life, and I think it was just kind of a nice, something different to kind of capture people's attentions away from day-to-day life or politics or whatever it is.
Tyler Barrow, CTV News, Calgary.
And if you missed last night's excitement in the sky, you won't have to wait too long for another chance. The Geminid meteor shower is expected around December 13th. Well, a Calgarian is guilty of terrorism charges, and experts say this is just a small part of the radicalization challenge Canada faces.
You're watching CTV News, Calgary.
A Calgary man has been found guilty of taking part in terrorist activities overseas. A judge ruled late this afternoon that Jamal Borhat traveled to Syria to fight with the Islamic State. As Terry Fikowski reports, crime experts say this case is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the nationwide challenge of radicalization.
Jamal Borhat traveled to Syria to fight with ISIS for 11 months between 2013 and 2014, and on Monday, more than a decade later, was found guilty on 3 counts of participating in terrorist activities. The conviction comes 5 years after the now 35-year-old was charged after a lengthy and complicated international investigation.
It's been a long process, a lot of work done by everybody, so just having a conclusion, or most of a conclusion, is definitely a good spot to be.
Justice Carino Dario says evidence shows Borhat took part in training, acts of violence, and leadership duties with a shared goal of creating an Islamic State. He was prepared to kill and die for his beliefs, she said in her decision. He used firearms with the intention to kill anyone who was non-Muslim. In 2022, his co-accused and cousin, Hussein Borhat, pled guilty in a separate trial and was sentenced to 12 years in prison.
The barbarity of the acts they've engaged in is incredibly troubling.
For this criminologist, the cases reflect Canada's struggles to address foreign fighter recruitment and radicalization. According to the RCMP, the number of terrorism-related charges in Canada jumped 488% in 2024.
Unfortunately, when you neglect border security, when you neglect national security, when you under-resource your federal law enforcement and security services, this is what happens.
Court heard Borhat returned to Canada after being imprisoned in Syria for stealing medication. He's been out on bail for the past 5 years, but on Monday was taken into custody.
To say that the family and Mr. Borhat are anything but devastated by this ruling would be an understatement.
3 counts of participating in a terrorist activity each carry a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison and can be served consecutively. The Crown and defense will return to court for sentencing arguments on January 16th. Terry Fikowski, CTV News, Calgary.
The Calgary Fire Department is being credited with stopping a carjacking suspect. It happened around 5:30 last night near Walden Mews Southeast. A grandfather with his grandchild managed to get out of the vehicle before a masked man drove away. Minutes later, witnesses reported a vehicle hitting a power pole. The fire department showed up at the scene and boxed in the vehicle after the driver rammed the fire truck. The 23-year-old suspect is facing a number of charges, including impaired operation of a motor vehicle. A new commission that will oversee complaints made against police officers is now fully operational. And already there are questions about who makes up the commission and how well it will work. Gates Guarin reports.
The province calls it a new era in police oversight.
By creating this independent civilian-led body, we're setting a new standard, one that puts fairness and integrity at the heart of the law enforcement in Alberta.
Complaints against police filed by Albertans will now be received and investigated by the new Police Review Commission. These complaints can range from non-criminal misconduct to cases involving serious injury or death.
With this new model, Albertans can be confident investigations will be handled fairly and impartially.
Investigations were previously handled by individual police agencies, which, according to one retired police inspector, caused a rift in public perception.
And I think that's the goal, is to try to expand on or have at least significantly more police legitimacy and the police not investigating the police.
Dan Jones says calls for more civilian oversight and transparency have been made for quite some time, and a civilian-led commission should help that. But he has questions about who will be a part of it.
Who are they? Are they former police officers that served in the agencies in which they are investigating? And then is that actually changing anything? And I think that's where the public will be like, well, you're not actually changing it. You're just changing the name of it.
The commission emphasizes independence, but believe experience is crucial.
You can rely upon their investigative expertise, but at the same time, make sure that we're truly not having police ultimately investigating police and making the final conclusions.
The commission is mandated to finish investigations within 180 days. Complaints can now be filed on the commission's website. Gates Gorin, CTV News, Edmonton.
It was warm and bright today, but tomorrow's only expected to be half of that. Danielle is along next with her Skywatch forecast.
Today was certainly a warm day to kick off December. It's December 1st, and we got up to 5 degrees in the city today, so not so bad. It looks like we passed our colder temperatures off to the east. Regina had a high of -12 and Winnipeg -11. All right, earlier today there was a little bit of flurry activity in the south, also gusty conditions in the south, and this created some blowing and drifting snow, so not the best for driving conditions in some communities, especially to the far south. We're looking at the second wave of this arriving for tomorrow, and Calgary will be included in this. So just a shot at 7 a.m., you can see that snow starting to push its way towards and into Calgary. So Edmonton, all down QE2 to the west of QE2 to the east of QE2, snowfall is possible, but we are looking throughout the day at that main band of snow being from basically Red Deer down through Calgary, down Highway 2 and into Lethbridge. So I'm just going to advance this and you can see that there. It will be on and off throughout the day. We're not looking at huge significant totals from this, but we are looking at it popping in at times, especially along this corridor here, Calgary down towards Lethbridge, and reducing visibility at times. It will be windy at times as well, so that will reduce visibility out there on the highways, may make driving a little tricky in some areas throughout the day. All right, and then it clears out as we get into Wednesday and warms up as well. Now, we're really actually quite mild for the next couple of days, so we may even see some of this wet snow change into some rainfall in the afternoon hours. But expect anywhere from 1 to 3 centimeters of snow, really from Red Deer down through Airdrie, Calgary, Okotoks, High River, down to Lethbridge, even Milk River, still at 1 to 3 centimeters possible. It's less likely to create any sort of accumulation in Medicine Hat, and we're less likely to see that to the west of Cochrane. So these are really the communities and where that ban should be concentrated. All right, looking at that longer range forecast. In the city, +1 for tomorrow, but that does come with a cold wind gusting up to 40 kilometers per hour out of the north. That's a chilly wind. So a less significant snowfall for tomorrow, 1 to 3 centimeters possible. Then we clear out. So stable weather Wednesday and Thursday, and we warm up to 2 and 4. But it may be a more significant snowfall on Friday. I'll keep you posted as we get closer. 3 to 5 centimeters is what it's looking like at this point, and a daytime high of -6. So colder by then as well.
Thanks, Danielle. A Canadian species once on the brink of extinction is making a comeback. 20 years ago, there were fewer than 24 Vancouver Island marmots counted. Now, with the help from Calgary Zoo's Wilder Institute, the population has boomed. An animal unique to Canada is making a comeback thanks in part to the Calgary Zoo's conservation program. The Vancouver Island marmot population was below 24, and now it's over 400. Andy Garland reports.
Sibling rivalry is a part of growing up for these two Vancouver Island marmots.
They're really rambunctious. They're a lot of fun to watch in the wild, and then they'll stop and they'll go and they'll boop noses, which is a pair bonding activity.
They're two of 427 Vancouver Island marmots that are in the wild today.
The early recovery plans that were drafted, 400 was the dream, right? That was sort of the initial kind of target. That was the goal.
It's taken the Marmot Recovery Foundation more than 2 decades to reach the 400 milestone.
The perspective that we try and take is, when we started this program, we could find 22. That was how many marmots we had left in the wild.
The foundation says that the most effective and strongest tool for population growth has been the captive breeding program they do, alongside the Calgary Zoo's Wilder Institute, as well as the Toronto Zoo.
It's important to recognize that when a population gets down to so few individuals out in the wild, it's really unlikely that they're going to recover without human intervention.
It's unbelievable. Without the efforts of all of the partners and without ex situ breeding for release into the wild, I can almost guarantee you that the Vancouver Island marmot would be extinct.
Even though they're seeing good reproduction numbers, all parties agree the marmots are not out of the woods yet, and more work still needs to be done.
Pups surviving to adulthood, I think we still have a bit of work left to go on that front. The other thing we want to see is good dispersal. So marmots moving around between colonies.
The foundation adds that all the work being done to bring back the Vancouver Island marmot from the brink of extinction is all because of donations from Canadians wanting to see this made-in-Canada species thrive. Andy Garland, CTV News.
Thanks for staying up late with us. We leave you tonight with a Christmas lights display from South Calgary.